Okay, what have we got here? Right, 2015 KA Fiat 500, same gearbox. Customer complaint was that the reversing light wasn't working. So did a few tests, and that is the switch on the end of the top of the gearbox, and that was found to be not being engaged. So clearly at first somebody put a new switch in it. There's nothing wrong with the old one, and clearly that didn't solve the problem, but the vehicle drove perfectly. You put it in reverse gear, no reversing lights, and when it was metered out, the actual switch just wasn't being activated. So the car was put back on the road to be brought back another day. Then the car broke down because none of the gears could be selected. None of the 5 forward gears or reverse gears. Everything went sloppy. So brought the car back in, stuck it on the ramp, took this gear top off, which is quite straightforward, 4 bolts, which you've took everything else that's in its way. And what was discovered was that this is the shaft that runs next to the bulkhead, and this part here, I don't know whether it's going to show very well in camera, has a roll pin that roll pins it and fixes onto there. That roll pin had sheared, so this was allowed to float. It was still being rotated, but it was allowed to float. That end there, when you engage reverse gear, pushes against the reversing switch there. So that was the first symptom. Clearly the roll pin was breaking, or part of it had broke, but then obviously clearly another road test and a few miles later the roll pin finally gave up and that was allowed to slide. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a new roll pin in it, clean it all up. It's quite straightforward. As you can see, that selector pin goes in there and selects the gears and moves sideways, which it couldn't do because obviously the roll pin was snapped. Clean all that up and we'll rebuild it, and hopefully that will be the end of it, and I will update you when I know more. Okay, so that's the new roll pin in there. So clearly now it's not so easy with one-handed, but it operates it quite perfectly well. Interestingly, the roll pin goes through that outer collar, through that shaft, and then obviously would go into the other side of the outer collar. What I noticed was at first I thought the actual collar, sorry, the split pin had snapped and the other half of it had dropped inside the gearbox. But when I actually looked at the pieces of the actual roll pin, not easy. Those two bits that snapped off there only went through the outer collar one side and the actual shaft itself. They're not actually snapped the other ends. So it never went all the way through. So it was always being stressed only on one side. Hence that's why it's sheared, because it's obviously taking twice as much load. Clearly that's a badly fitted roll pin. So there you have it. I should have started filming as I put it back together again, but I got a bit ahead of myself. Just the battery to go back in again. I've checked the gears. All the gears work lovely. I've put a bit of sealant around when I rebuilt it back up again. Rebuilt this back up, which is pretty straightforward to do. Just be careful when you're disconnecting your computer and battery tray and stuff like that when you take it out. Other than that, that's a fix. So that's cost, well, 10 pence for a roll pin and a reversing light switch that we didn't need, to be honest. But hopefully that's of help to somebody out there who has a scenario where they don't have a reversing light and it's not the switch. It's clearly going to be something inside there that's starting to break down, or they actually lose all gears. Obviously when you lose your gears, make sure that the connecting rods, one there and one across there, make sure they haven't come off. They're like a ball joint, hip joint. Make sure that they haven't come apart first, because clearly that's nothing to do with the gearbox. That's your first port of call. But if you've still got remote control of the gearbox down there, then clearly this is where you need to look next. Hopefully that's of use to somebody. Cheers, bye.